Welcome back, my fellow excellers. As you've seen before, I'm doing a 3-part series to my visit to the George Washington University Weight Management Center. This is part 2, and in part 2, we're going to talk about the results of my DEXA scan and my RMR testing. Now, just to refresh those that haven't seen it, and I'll link the first video down here. But the idea is that this is going to be where it's going to talk about where my fat stores are, those types of things, where they are on my body. And look, this gets very personal. I'll just say what it is. But it's my job to be able to really give you all of the information. As I've told you all before, I'm going to try to be as transparent as possible throughout this process, so that if one of you come through and they say, you know what, I'm trying to get past that. I'm trying to get past some type of hurdle or some type of mental block that's keeping you from getting to your goals. Maybe this will help somebody be able to go over the lines.
All right, so give us a story, Ray. What brings you in?
So, I had a epiphany a little while ago. Call it 6 months ago. I went in to get a checkup, and they told me that I was borderline diabetic. That was the first part.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece was as I was telling Michael before, I'm still playing sports. So I play flag football. 46 years old, you're going against 20-year-old kids and everything. You see different performance issues. So I finally started to see a little bit of a slip. Part of that comes into the health, not being strong enough. Not having the endurance that I did before. And so it was kind of a wake-up call to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I started to think about, okay, I saw a video, it was a website, a guy, Bricks is his name, it's Bricks Fitness. And so he lost 140 pounds. And I was looking up on YouTube, and just kind of went through this stuff. So you see the transformations that people do. And usually what ends up happening is that it's after they've done the transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good and it's inspiring, but I was just thinking to myself, I was like, you know what, how about if it was from day one?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Seeing the evolution of it as it starts to go through, and it makes a big difference, because then it's something to where people are jumping on board. They can see it can happen.
Yeah.
And they can see the way that you go about doing it. So part of it, when you reached out to me and kind of doing more, looking at the Miller method, those types of things, was, okay, you get your nutrition right. That's so much of the struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And so going through having a plan for that, because there's so much stuff that's out there. The other piece is that, it's not all about the scale, which, so many people get caught up in, is that, it's like, okay, you know what, I'm not, because I can yo-yo, 20 pounds quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like I said, depending on what it is, injuries or whatever, you end up going back. So part of what it was, okay, I want to have a definitive plan, very prescriptive, and saying, okay, this is what it is, but not just for a short term, I'm saying something for a long-term run. So that's kind of where I was. So the inspiration was, all right, I'm gonna start a YouTube channel. I'm gonna go through it. I'm going to document, what's going on. Part of that is for myself to be able to have the accountability. The one thing that I do about this is that it's going to be totally transparent. Whatever weight numbers are, whatever it is, the long and short of it, so people can see, okay, yeah, here's where you are, and it is attainable to be able to get to a better, healthy, and not just short term saying I want to lose the weight, but more of the lifestyle. Being able to say, okay, you can change things in your life to be able to do this, and this is how I did it. That's really where it came into it. So all this stuff that you see around here with the videos and all that, I didn't know how to do that stuff before. So it was like, you got to figure it out. So had to learn editing, all that kind of stuff. So it's a one-man band, getting it done. But the whole point of it is that I want people to be able to learn from the story that I have, and really be able to make sure that they can see it. So, no matter where they are in their progression, they can see it from day one.
Yeah.
And anytime they could go back and say, okay, here's the video that you start from, and start from that point.
Right.
And if they have the right guidance, they can see how it can get done.
Right.
That's the main thing.
Right.
So that's really where it came from.
Yeah, because when you see the end result of the transformation, you don't see the challenges that present themselves.
Absolutely.
So everyone just thinks it's all like, fairies and meadows and it's just this easy and now I've got this new life and this new body. It's not like that.
You're exactly right. I mean, to be able to see the peaks and valleys, because I mean, you know,
Right.
you're going to have plateaus. There are going to be times where you just struggle.
Yeah.
And if you don't
just
see
tired,
that,
yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
And I mean, and so much of it is, I mean, like you know, you've met my girlfriend Bridge before. When we used to be in the cycling class. It's one of those things where I'm not putting her on camera because look, I'm choosing this life. You know, because there's people that are going to hate. I'm sure you've seen in your YouTube page. You get the likes, the dislikes, all that kind of stuff. Got to have thick skin for it. But the whole point of it, to what you were saying, is that yeah, there's this,
Mm-hmm.
and people don't get a chance to see that. What I want them to see is that,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can understand that you can get to your weight goal, challenges, the things that you want to get done, but it's not always easy.
Well, I think the other issue to that people feel like is they're alone.
Mhm.
Like they're alone in their struggle and that it was so easy for this person, it was so easy for that person, and that leads to these feelings of failure.
Yeah.
Like I can't do this, I'm just destined to be fat or I'm destined to be unhealthy.
Yeah.
Because they don't realize that everyone goes through the same thing.
One of the big, kind of mantras that I have within, Excel Think, which is what, we're doing this thing for, which is my site, is that, you have people that are followers, as you say, right? And then we're building up that base, and, we call them Excellers, is the whole point. But the idea is that, everybody thinks it's if you have to lose a large amount of weight, but that's not the case. If you want to lose 3 pounds,
Yeah.
you're still in the spots where you don't want to be. And you
Right.
want to be comfortable in that skin that you
Right.
have there.
Right.
So this is for you as well.
Right.
Trying to go through that process. So it
Right.
runs to exactly what you're talking about.
Right. Okay. We're just going to go through all of this
Okay.
so you can understand where you're at, and then we will talk about your habits, your nutrition, your exercise, and pull the whole thing together.
Great.
All right. So this is the scan of your body. In terms of the mapping, the color mapping, the dark green is your fat-free mass. Okay. The yellow is considered a moderate fat area.
Okay.
And the different shades of yellow dictate how the composition of the fat versus the lean. So the
Yep.
darker yellow, it has a little bit less fat than the brighter yellow.
Gotcha.
Okay? And then the red are your areas of higher fat deposits. All right. Your body fat percentage is 41.4. And just so you know, our target for men is to get them under 20.
Okay.
That's our target.
Gotcha.
In terms of your mass composition, you have 141.2 pounds of fat. Your muscle mass, along with your organs, your lean is 189.4. And your skeleton, your bones, weigh 10.5 pounds. Those three together are what make up your total mass.
Gotcha.
Now your feet were cut off just a little bit, so this is what the DEXA was kind of calculating your mass out to be.
Yeah.
That's what you were on the scale.
Gotcha.
So you can see there's just a little bit, a couple
bit of
pounds
delta.
of a difference, right? But you're very tall.
Yeah.
So cut your feet off.
Yeah.
If you remove,
For everybody that needs to know, yeah, when you're tall, machines don't work for you. Seats in the airplane, same type of thing. It's not built
There's
towards
no room.
tall folks. Absolutely.
if you remove the fat from your body, you're left with the fat-free mass, which is your lean and your bone together. This is the stuff that we want to feed and nourish and support and activate. We don't need to feed the fat.
Yeah.
We're trying to pull that down, okay?
Gotcha.
But with weight loss, we never want you to lose muscle. That's why we're going after fat loss.
Yep.
Okay? But that's why I have that under the fat-free mass underlined, is because we're going to use that for your nutrition planning.
So let me ask you a question real quick. With this one, it says the 199.9. That's not like where target weight is
No.
supposed to be.
No,
Okay, that's what I
because you still need fat.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but what we're going to be looking at is this and trending that over time to make sure it's going up or
Yeah.
at least staying the same, not trending down.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. If you remove your skeleton, you're left with tissue, right? That's the rest of your body. So it's the fat and the lean together. So this tissue pounds is your total weight minus your skeleton.
Okay.
Just so you understand what the numbers mean. Okay?
Gotcha.
That's it. The two that you need to focus on the most are these two that I have underlined.
Let's circle those two. So we have, it's the region of percentage of fat, which is a 41.4, and the fat-free pounds is 199.9.
Correct.
Got it.
All right, next little box here shows your fat distribution in the upper and the lower regions. It just helps us understand how your body likes to distribute its fat. The android is the upper portion, so it's between these two horizontal lines here, and the gynoid is this lower region here. Right now, you're carrying more, from a percentage standpoint, more fat on the upper region than the lower region.
Okay.
All right, so that puts your ratio at 1.37, We like to see that ratio closer to 1
Okay.
or below 1. The reason is because you want to have less fat up here because that's where all your major organs are, and the more fat you have pressing on that area, the more weight, the more restricted things are.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Okay.
We're going to put you in a deficit, you're going to lose fat, these percentages are going to fall.
Okay.
That's what's going to happen.
Okay.
This is your BMI, which we don't even pay attention to, so we're skipping it.
So I'm curious because usually that's one of the things that people say is the biggest indicator. At least that's what the prevailing wisdom is out there. Why is it that you don't look at that? I'm curious, just for our purposes.
Because if you have more muscle, it's going to jack up your weight, and then it puts you into an overweight category.
Good.
It's that simple.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I want to know. I mean,
Yeah.
especially with people, thinking about it, because part of what this is education too, and making sure that people understand. There's so many things out there that we hear that we just don't understand.
Yeah. The more muscle you have,
Mhm.
the more it will push you towards the overweight or obese categories,
Yeah.
even if you're not.
Yeah.
I think it's something like 25% of the population is classified as overweight or obese when they're really not, if you just look at BMI.
Gotcha.
The other thing it does is if your muscle mass is really low, your BMI can be normal, but you might have a body fat of 45%,
Yeah.
just because you have so little muscle.
Gotcha.
So that's just as bad of a situation to be in.
Now I got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't look at the composition of your mass, it just looks at mass.
Yeah. Period. And then so it's not a good indicator.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
This page goes through the segmentation of your body. So you can see every region listed here, and it gives you all kinds of numbers. We're just going to look at these two columns, which is your fat pounds and your lean pounds.
Okay.
Okay? The fat pounds columns just helps you see how your body is distributing, where your body's distributing fat. You don't have control over that. You're either eating in a surplus, which means you're gaining fat, or you're eating in a deficit to support fat loss.
Okay.
Your body's going to kind of distribute where it wants to, and it's going to pull fat from where it wants to.
And there's difference between like male and female in terms of distribution. Is that fair to say? Okay.
Typically, yeah, males have a tendency to distribute more fat on this upper region. Females have a tendency to distribute more on the bottom region. However, it's not black and white. There's lots of males that have their genetics support more fat loss down, or more fat deposits down here.
Okay.
Whereas there's some females that their genetics cause more fat deposits up here.
Gotcha. Okay.
So genetics play a role as well.
Okay.
All right, the lean pounds are where we have a little bit more control, right? Because you can work certain areas of the body to support muscle growth in certain areas of the body, right? What I did was highlight the two largest muscle groups. The trunk, which is your chest and your back, is the largest muscle group in the body.
Okay.
Okay, so this is your total amount of muscle mass right here, 189.4, and you've got 76.9 in the trunk.
Interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
The legs, you actually have a lot in your legs too. You have 74.5 in the legs,
And that's muscle, you said, right?
Muscle.
Lane? Gotcha. All right.
muscle pounds. Mm-hmm.
It's always been that way, even when I was like, in athletic, M shape. Yeah, it's mostly in my legs. So that's that part doesn't surprise me, but it's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so when we come back and we're talking about the training, we're gonna revisit this.
Okay.
Because we want you to be activating and using the largest amount of muscle that you possibly can to get the most bang for your buck, right? In terms of a calorie burn.
Yeah.
These are the two largest muscle groups, okay?
Okay.
Whereas if you look at your arms, you can see how much is there, or how little is there, I guess
Yeah.
I should say. Your android would be like your waistband area, so that little wraparound core area.
Yep.
Smallest area in terms of muscle mass. And then the gynoid, which would be your hips, has a little bit more than the core area, obviously, but it's still a relatively small muscle group.
Okay.
Okay? But I just want you to remember this, because if it helps you understand, like, okay, when I'm training legs, I'm training this 75 pounds plus this 31 pounds in my hips, like I'm activating this amount of muscle.
Gotcha. Yep. No, it makes sense. Gotcha. Okay.
All right. The other thing that this scan gives us is your visceral fat, your visceral adipose tissue. This is the stuff that is found internally around your organs, around your blood vessels. Stuff you do not want in your body.
Yeah.
Okay? You have 6.73 pounds, which is high.
Okay. What is normal?
We want it less than 2.
Okay. So I got some work to do.
Yeah. But this is part of the reason I would suspect that you are pre-diabetic. You probably have fat pressing down on some of the blood vessels, maybe around your pancreas, that could be impeding its function.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay?
That's the fat that's predictive of things like metabolic disorder, cardiovascular disease. So we have women who might be at the same body fat percentage as you are, but their visceral fat might be under a pound. They don't have that risk factor.
Okay.
So it's not just how much fat you have. That is a much stronger predictor of disease than just having extra fat.
Gotcha. Yeah, and how it's affecting tissues and things like that. Okay.
Right.
Gotcha. No, that
It's
makes
where
sense.
you're depositing it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Again, we're going to put you in a deficit. Hopefully this comes down relatively quickly.
What is because there's the prevailing wisdom out there. You see people with drastic weight loss, right? And it's done, over a certain amount of time. I mean, there are some people that get up there and they, kill themselves doing cardiovascular. They get down, they lose 60 pounds. I've seen it in a month in some cases. It can't be healthy. Fair to say. What is a good rate for the folks that are listening? What's a good rate in terms of losing weight at a certain clip? What's kind of a good rule of thumb for that?
We shoot generally for 1/2 to 1 pound per week.
Okay.
Of fat
loss, not weight loss.
Yeah.
So you could be growing muscle and losing fat, which
Totally.
means your weight is not changing.
Right,
Totally understand.
And this is why we don't use the scale.
Yep.
right. But yeah, for
But
fat,
for fat loss.
So when you see that person who loses 60 pounds in a month, they don't lose 60 pounds of fat.
No.
Right, and that's the, following up on what you said about it not being healthy, if they are losing muscle, which they would have to be in order to lose that kind of weight in that amount of time, they have to be losing muscle.
Yeah.
Well, that is, that dramatically damages the metabolism because, and maybe
I was
not.
gonna say it's also like
maybe not
thyroid
permanently, but
hormones
yeah,
and stuff.
right.
Because it's such a shock to your system to be in that great of a deficit and lose that much mass that quickly, that your body essentially goes into like a little bit of a shock and it starts to conserve all of its energy, which to Todd's point damages metabolism, usually by way of the thyroid.
Yeah. In
Gotcha.
fact, there was a study published on Biggest Loser contestants who lost this dramatic amount of weight, and then they eventually gain it all back,
Yeah.
but their metabolism doesn't recover.
Yeah.
So their metabolism is still depressed. It's not as high as it was before they lost the weight.
Interesting.
Which makes you more susceptible to weight gain over
Right.
time.
Yeah. Well, it just makes it that much harder to, stay
Yeah.
back
To
in
do
this. So
anything.
Right.
Part of what, we talk about with this, and I'm glad to hear the science behind it, thought process from experts, is that, we talk about not just changing what you're doing from a physical standpoint, the way that you look, it's your mentality as well. And then the other piece is, when you start to look at it, you say, okay, it's the lifestyle that you have to change.
No, because if you do get the quick results, they're not fat loss.
Yeah.
They're usually some fat, but mostly water and muscle, and you're doing an unsustainable behavior.
Yeah.
So we tell people all the time, if what you're doing, you can't picture yourself doing a year from now, then forget it, quit and do something else.
Gotcha.
Because you're going to fail.
Right. We say just you need to adopt what you're doing as your lifestyle and let your body do its thing. Let your body change. It will change.
Yeah.
It's coming, but you have to not look for it. When you're looking for it, it creates stress, it creates anxiety, you feel like you're failing if you
Yeah.
go like a little bit off the rails.
It's so much of it is between the ears, I mean,
Absolutely.
It's almost all between
It's
the
almost all
exactly.
between the ears,
And,
yeah.
Yeah, and if you're not there, you get it. You're trying to get those quick results, and I get that. We've all been through it. We've all done,
course.
different yo-yo diets, whatever it is. But then all of a sudden, it's not sustainable, and that's where the problem is. And that's where where I obviously for personal reasons, but for the folks that are going to be listening, do it right and seek the counsel of people that know what they're talking about, as opposed to seeing somebody up on stage with the before and after pictures. I'm sure you guys do
Yeah.
that all the time. So
All the
this
time.
makes a difference, definitely.
Yeah. This is your bone density. Your bones are in great shape. This is your plot point right here. This line right here is the low end of normal, so you can see you are well above that.
So there's one positive, just so everybody knows. A good big bones.
Your fat-free mass is huge.
It's
That's another
huge.
positive. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
A lot of muscle.
Gotcha.
Yeah. This is your summary page. So when you come get additional DEXAs, you're going to get to see your body image shown here. We
Okay.
can track those visual changes. This also plots your weight change, your fat mass, and your lean mass.
Okay.
So what we're looking for is this to be trending down, this to either be trending up or staying the same,
Okay,
which depending on what happens here will affect your weight.
gotcha, okay.
So you can see I didn't even put anything there.
Yeah.
Eventually your muscle mass, if you're not gonna grow anymore, we're gonna know it's staying the same. If you continue to grow, it will eventually plateau, and then your weight will start to trend down because fat loss is going to continue to happen.
Gotcha, okay.
Questions on the DEXA?
Yeah, and I guess probably the end piece of it too. So, as starting out with this thing, and again, this is in the beginning stages, the whole thing was, okay, the goal is 100 pounds of weight loss. But from what it sounds like is that I need to revisit that.
You do.
We'll calculate it.
We already
Okay.
did.
Okay, so that makes life easier. So, we're gonna be changing a few of these things coming
It's
up
close.
soon.
I mean, you could do 100 pounds. Well, should I explain to them what I did?
Yeah.
So what I did was I essentially put you in with a target of 20% body fat.
Okay,
Okay. Whether or not you'll reach that, it's yet to be seen. But assuming your muscle mass stays the same, that's a fat loss of 91 pounds.
okay,
Okay. So if we gave you a lower target percent fat, we could get that to 100. You know, but
that was fine. I would,
but
yeah.
we know what's more realistic based on looking at the percent fat,
Yeah.
right? So like if we have to put you at 14% body fat to get to 100 pounds of fat loss, that might be
Yeah, stuff.
unsustainable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So that puts you at a target fat mass of 50 pounds.
I don't want to manipulate it to get it to 100 pounds
I don't either.
because
I'm with you.
I think it kind of honors the whole notion of let me just pick a number.
Right.
Right? That sounds good.
Mhm.
And it's based on weight.
It's based on weight.
Yeah.
So we're not going to round up. 91 pounds of fat loss is what we're shooting
But just
for.
out of curiosity, where did you come up with 100?
Sounded good.
Yeah.
Sounded good.
That's
So-
exactly what it came in, because, you know, here's the thing about it. So, again, the evolution of this was, okay, or go up on YouTube, you know, I see certain success stories. Now, part of what it is that, you know, you see the folks that, you know, have the skin issues, those types of
Sure.
things
Mhm.
afterwards, and
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you get that. But usually they're part of its biggest loser.
Yeah.
You start to look at those
Yeah.
weight loss to be able to
Yeah.
get to a certain, you know, ideal look
Yeah.
of what you
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
do. And usually it's 100 plus pounds.
Mhm.
I
Right.
thought that going, like you see some of those ones that are like, you know, 160, something like that, were so extreme in the ways that they had to go about it, you know, it just didn't seem afterwards, if you followed them, were they still in that, you know, were they still at that weight? And they weren't. So the 100 seemed a challenge, number one. Number two, it felt like, okay, that could get me in a range of things that I wanted to do. You know, like I said, zip lining,
Yeah.
those types of things. I mean, and usually there's a 250 pound limit. So I'm right there on that cusp.
Got it.
And so if I was in that 100 range, that'd be fine. Now, when I was at, you know, playing weight and those types of things, when I was playing basketball back at school, I was around 215, 220 in high school. But the thing about it is that I don't want to be that small. I want to be able to have a good physique.
So you're
those types of
underestimating
things.
your muscle mass.
Yeah.
That's where that's coming from.
Yeah.
And at 215 in high school, you weren't at your peak muscle mass.
No, because you weren't walking around with 200 pounds of muscle at
No.
215.
I mean, think about that. You have 200 pounds of muscle.
Yeah. Yeah.
With your bones, with like all of that lean mass, that fat-free mass, is at 200 pounds.
Yep.
It changes your whole framework of where you think your ideal body weight should be.
No, you're right. And then it's so much is what they tell you is that, like, if you go into any type of a calculator, they tell you, like, okay, I'm 6'4",
Yeah,
you know, and they say, okay, you're supposed to be like 185, and I'm
Right.
like, what?
that's according to the BMI.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't make
According
any
to
sense to me.
BMI.
I'm like, even when I was in my peak physical condition, I wasn't even
Right.
close to that.
No.
I'm like, that doesn't make sense to
No,
me.
I mean,
So-
you have 15 more pounds of lean mass than that now.
exactly. So
If you
it
were
just
at
don't
20 pounds of the 20% fat, that puts you at 250 pounds.
Gotcha. That'll make the abs pop and everything, so I'd get rid of my one ab and be able to trade it in for other ones, yeah?
You wouldn't see 6, but you would see more than 1.
So we're close? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can live with that.
Yeah.
I can
We
live
can
with
airbrush some abs
that.
on
You know what I mean? That's awesome. I like that.
100 pounds of fat loss is 17% fat.
Gotcha. But I mean, 20 is
20
being
is-
healthy.
Yeah.
all
It's
that.
realistic, it's appropriate, it's sustainable, you
Right.
can live your life,
do
you
it,
can
right.
eat fun food, you can drink alcohol, you can be a
Right.
little bit more flexible.
You had me at alcohol. You had me at alcohol. I love it.
Doesn't take much, I just rattle things off until I connect with someone.
I love it.
This is your resting metabolic rate. Your individualized rate is 2,737. That is how many calories your body is requiring at rest No activity, no food, no movement.
Okay.
Sitting in a chair all day for 24 hours, that's how much you would burn.
Okay.
Okay? Give or take.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to take your height, your weight, your age, and your sex and plug it into an equation to estimate or predict where we think you would be, we would have you at this number, 2,887.
Okay.
So your actual measured rate is running just a smidge below that predicted value by about 5%.
Okay.
Okay? Just means your metabolism is within normal range.
Okay. So it's
Okay.
not high, it's not low, it's.
It's appropriate.
in the range.
Plus or minus 10% of the predicted value is considered a normal rate.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
What is he at?
What would you mean?
Percentage?
5%.
Faster?
Yeah, it's slower.
Slower?
What's the Cunningham? 2,300. Really? That's it? Interesting. Okay. So Todd and I, we believe, or our whole premise is, let's get this running as fast as we can get it.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is where you burn 70% of the calories over the course of the day. So
Okay.
your total daily energy expenditure, this takes up 70% of it.
Okay.
Okay? The rest is structured exercise, activities of daily living, and the thermic effect of food, meaning just eating, you're
Yeah.
burning calories. It makes sense to elevate this, because if you can elevate the bulk of where your calorie burn is coming from,
Yeah.
you're gonna burn more calories over
Yeah,
the
makes
course of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We do that two ways. We're going to talk about that. One is it's a diet component, how much protein you consume, and the way that in which you resistance train.
Okay.
It's resistance training and then the manner in which you're doing it.
Gotcha.
Okay. The other component that we see affect this is thyroid, but we can't control that.
Yeah.
Right? And there's no indicator that your thyroid is abnormal in any way.
Yeah.
So.
Positive.
Positive. The other thing that this test tells us is the percent of calories that you're burning from your diet, from fat and carbohydrate.
Okay.
They're the two primary nutrients out of fat, carbohydrate, and protein. Fat and carbs are what we use for energy production.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right?
Mhm.
You don't want to be relying on protein for energy. That's our building block nutrient. Okay?
Very different than the wisdom that you hear out on the street, you know? Yeah, gotcha, okay. Because remind me to talk about intermittent fasting too, because I want to get your thoughts on that.
All right.
Okay, so you're relying heavily on fat right now. You're relying on about 72% from fat and about 27% or so from carb. We want to see that a little bit closer to 60-40 because again, this is from diet,
Okay.
which means your body is taking dietary fat and primarily using that as its energy source.
Okay,
We want your body burning its own fat,
makes sense.
okay?
Mhm.
So we can manipulate these percentages based on the composition of how we feed you.
Okay. Makes sense. All right, same
Questions
page.
on that?
No, straightforward.
Great.
So now when you start talking about our obesity class, 'cause I want to make sure that everybody sees on this. So obesity class 3, tell me about that.
It's all based on the BMI.
Okay, so now we're not talking.
No.
about-
So a BMI between 25 and 29.9 is considered overweight. 30 to 34.9 is obese 1. 35 to 39.9 is obese 2. 40 and over is obese 3 or morbidly obese,
Gotcha. Okay.
based on BMI classification.
Yeah, we're not doing that because that doesn't mean anything.
No, it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Got it.
If you wanted gastric bypass surgery, for example, your BMI has to be within a certain level.
Interesting.
So
So-
we, sadly, we've had people that, have tried to gain weight in order to be
Qualify.
qualified to be able to get gastric bypass.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I had a guy come to me once and he's like, I'm getting gastric bypass and I'm only meeting with you because I'm required to. You are not to tell me to lose weight. You're not putting me on a plan to lose weight. I need to keep my BMI fat so I can get this surgery. I was like,
Wow.
all right then.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he was just very like, this is what's happening. This is what you're going to do for me. I'm only here because it's on paper.
Wow. I mean, it just, at that point, you're just not in the right mindset.
Right.
No.
You know, I mean. All right. You guys got a chance to see my results. A lot of work to do, right? But here's the thing. I didn't know what I had to do at that time. I came into this process thinking, okay, you know what? I just want to lose 100 pounds, right? The thing about that is that it wasn't the smartest approach. It was just kind of pie in the sky without a particular type of plan. Now, I knew I could lose weight.
I've done it so many times over the years, but having a concise plan makes a big difference. So hopefully what you got from the video that that you just watched was looking at my results, getting an understanding of what science does as opposed to marketing that's out there that tells you, you can lose weight by eating yogurt or, these types of things. It's just, having a concise plan is so important to be able to get yourselves on track and to be able to make sure that you have something clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link the George Washington University Weight Management Center. I'm going to give you basically where you can sign up for it if you want to. And I'm also going to link a Groupon, which gives you significant discount off of the program. So I'll link that down there for you. Check it out, and then also check out part 3, which is going to be our next video, and that's going to talk about the plan itself. There's a lot of good stuff that's going to come out of this one, a lot of myths that you guys probably didn't know about before, but you'll get a better understanding as you start to go through. Please consider subscribing. Hit that little bell down on the corner right next to the subscribe button. That'll give you notifications to when I'm putting out new videos. And always feel free to comment down below. We always ask that you try to stay positive in this case, because look, we're just trying to build something here, and there's no hidden agenda, but I'd love to be able to get the feedback as well. So stay tuned for part 3. I'll talk to you guys soon.